Well, hi everybody. My name's Steve Rolston. I'm the founder of Landark Homes and Watercolour Westport. And today we're here with Gary Sharp of AeroBarrier. I'm also excited to introduce to you Gary because he has a very prestigious background as one of the authors and creators of this.
Thank you, Stephen.
The CHBA Homebuilder's Manual. So Gary, can you tell us a bit about this?
Sure. That particular manual, the CHBA, the Canadian Home Builders Association, has been putting out a builder's manual for 25 or 30 years, and they've been involved with it even prior to R2000, which was in 1980. But they started putting out the R2000 Builder's Manual to help builders to build better homes. That manual is updated every 5 years or so by the Home Builders Association, and I've been lucky enough to be involved with it for about the last 25 years. This particular manual goes beyond R2000 and all the way to net zero houses.
And can you tell us a little bit about net zero and the designation and how that's different from R2000 as opposed to what I call the obsolete National Building Code?
Okay. The R2000 was always intended to be ahead of the building code. So R2000 was one of the first, probably the first housing to ever set a requirement for air tightness, requirements for ventilation, and requirements for indoor air quality. And so R2000 was updated on a 5-year basis as well to stay ahead of the building codes. We are now at the stage where we're moving even beyond that to houses that produce as much energy over the course of a year as they consume during that year. So that would be a net zero house. And so R2000 is, the basis for all of this, but we're now at the net zero level.
And last 2 weeks ago when we did these videos, we had Stefan Magner on here. And when he does his courses, he uses this manual as part of his training that you helped co-author, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Okay, well, can you tell us a little bit about this one as well?
Again, the Canadian Home Builders Association decided to put together a renovator's manual because we, the building industry, believed that renovators needed some guidance as well on how to build and how to renovate homes better. So this manual I've been involved with. I was a co-author of this manual and a project manager on putting it together. This is the first of its kind, the CHBA Renovators Manual, and it talks about how to fix houses. And there's a chapter in there that also talks about how to take a house from where it is to net zero or net zero ready.
So would this just be for builders, or would this be for the average consumer to know what to ask of a renovator or a builder helping?
It would certainly be useful for anyone to look at that manual. All of these manuals are pretty heavy in the building science side. So if someone thinks that these are a book that says, here's how you put two pieces of wood together, it's not that. No. And it's not a book that says, here's what the code says. What the book says is, here's what building science is, and this is how you build a better house.
Thank you, Gary. And now can you tell us a little bit about this one?
And that also is the first of its kind. That is another book by the Canadian Home Builders Association that I was involved with, and I was one of the authors of that book. And that is for adaptive homes. What it is basically making an existing house more accessible for the people who live there. So aging in place. So, but it's not just for aging in place. If someone has had a traumatic injury, a car accident, a heart attack, or something like that, it's to fix the house or modify the house so that the house can be useful and they can live there for the rest of their life.
And this is very important to me because both my parents had walkers and my mother had fallen and broken her hip twice. So to me, this whole video series is all about us being a trusted guide for, we hope, what will eventually be about 1,000 home builders across Canada and Lord willing, about 10,000 across the US, building to this net zero and net zero ready standard. And this is quite important because I think any home can be retrofitted or built from day one to be net zero or net zero ready.
Exactly.
And same with this
and
idea.
accessible.
And accessible.
Yeah.
So now what I wanted you to talk about is where the building code thinks homes are in terms of air changes per hour.
Sure.
And a little bit about your business and what you're seeing and what the reality is. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about AeroBarrier and what you do.
Sure. I have been involved in the building industry, obviously, for many, many years. And one of the things that I found, and a lot of it is because of R2000, is that in order to get better control of the amount of energy that our houses use, we need to make them tighter. So that it's not, your house is not like having an open window and the air just blows in and out as it wants to. So you make the house tight, that gets you control of how much energy is being used, that combined with the amount of insulation that's on the house. Now, if the air isn't just blowing through the house, you need to provide ventilation. So you put in a heat recovery ventilator. And once you do that, of course, then that gives you the opportunity to filter the air or do a variety of different things to make the air quality better. So the building code is moving to encourage builders to build better and build more airtight. The building code has said that they believe, or that the houses are somewhere around 3 air changes per hour when they're tested to 50 pascals depressurization. So that's just the way that the houses are measured, so they're all consistent, and then you can compare all of the numbers from one house to another, so you're comparing apples with apples. So I've tested many houses during the R2000 days. Of course, R2000 had to be less than 1.5 air changes per hour, but I've also tested, farmhouses and, just regular, site built tract housing and that type of thing. And the numbers currently are anywhere from 3 to 5 to 6. And there aren't that many houses that are actually at 3. And for an energy standard like net zero or net zero ready, which is what you are doing here at Watercolour Westport, is your number is 1.5 or less. And we are consistently coming in here with the process that we use called AeroBarrier. We're coming in at somewhere around 0.5. So significantly less than what your target goal is. I got involved with air tightness because of this. I could see that this is where the industry was going. And so I found a technology which is called AeroBarrier, where it takes the air barrier that your tradespeople have installed in the house and makes it better. So my company is called Airtight Home Technologies, and the product that we use is AeroBarrier.
And can you explain to people, I often say it's sort of like Elmer's liquid glue getting released in these little aerosolized sprays on each floor. But can you explain a little bit about how that depressurization works? Because I think it's supposed to be the equivalent of something like a 50 kilometer an hour wind or something like that?
Correct. That's at 50 pascals depressurization. Yeah, it does equate to a wind speed. So the way our technology works, what we do is we set up a blower door as if we were doing a house test, and we pressurize the house. And then we spray the AeroBarrier into the space inside of the house, and it creates an aerosolized fog. And as the air tries to move out through the unintentional cracks and holes in the building envelope, it carries with it the particles of AeroBarrier, and those seal up the building envelope. So we're essentially doing a blower door test every minute while we are doing the seal, and we can see the house get tighter and tighter and tighter. And basically we seal until the house doesn't get any tighter. It starts to plateau. And then at that stage, we're pretty much done the seal. And that's about 2 to 3 hours long to achieve that.
And just so that people understand this whole idea, in our last video, we're trying to talk about third-party verification.
Yes.
Can you explain how we do the blower door test before you start with Stefan Magneron?
Yes.
And then you are giving us the air sealing certificate.
Correct.
Just can you explain what an air sealing certificate is? Because most builders don't provide that.
No, they wouldn't provide that unless they have us do the air seal on the house. So Stefan does the test just a little bit different than us. Stefan's test that is used for certification is a negative pressure test. So he pulls the air out of the house and sees how much leaks in. Our test, because we're actually doing a process on the house, we pressurize the house and we try to get it to leak out so that our sealant material seals all the holes. And then Stefan then comes back later and he does another blower door test and he determines what your final number is for certification. So we do a blower door test before we start to do the AeroBarrier, so we know where we're starting. So for example, the house that we're doing today is starting at 1.1, which is better than our 2000. So most builders would be very happy with that. And we will seal until we will be probably somewhere below 0.5 or less on this house. And then we will do another blower door test and we'll determine what the difference was. And usually the improvement is about anywhere from 50 to 75 to 80%. Most of the time we're in that 70 to 80% improvement in the air tightness of the house. So what does that mean to a customer? It means that the house is going to be easier to heat and cool. It means that they're not going to have any drafts in the house. It means that the house is going to be quieter. You're not going to have pollen or dust or any of those kind of things just leaking into the house. So the house is going to be just more comfortable, easier to heat and cool, and easier to maintain good indoor air quality with a proper ventilation system.
We're moving towards 2035 adoption of all homes being built net zero. Why do you think more builders aren't moving in this direction sooner?
Well, I mean, builders tend to be creatures of habit. I've been doing it this way for 30 years and I'm not going to change. House is the most expensive investment that most people will make. And because of that, builders are very averse to risk. And to build a better house, you have to take a bit of a chance. Now, we're not just creating stuff out of thin air and saying, let's nail this up. You are using technologies that have been developed over many years through the Canadian Homebuilders Association, through the National Research Council, with Natural Resources Canada, with Canada Mortgage and Housing. There's a whole number of different parties in Canada that have all had their hand in making houses better over the years. And what's so exciting to me is that we're at the stage where we get to do all of these things. We can now build a house that we can run with solar panels. We hadn't been able to do that before. One, because solar panels were too expensive, and secondly, because we were building houses that still needed too much energy. And now we're at the stage where we can do this. And that is wow, that's exciting.
And we think it's pretty exciting too, and that's why we're thrilled to be a part of this, so that maybe we can just be a trusted guide on someone's journey wherever they are. Because to me, they're the hero of their story, and that's all we want to be, is a trusted guide. So we're happy to have you here as part of that education process and inspiration process of what we call the more and better of Landark Homes. But also, Gary, before we wrap this up, can you just explain the difference between some of the builders are using AeroBarrier post drywall,
yes,
whereas we think it's better to use AeroBarrier pre-insulation. And right. Just because there's a cost differential, some people will be getting into this, but we've been educated by you and Stefan Magneron and also, of course, Gord Cook, that the further we get that air seal to the outside, the better. So can you just touch on that in your own words a little bit? Well,
for me, in houses that I've built for myself, I like to use the exterior air barrier, which is what you are doing. And the exterior air barrier allows you to walk around the outside of the house and basically look for holes. A lot of builders will not use an exterior air barrier. They will use the traditional polyethylene as the air barrier. So the polyethylene, of course, goes in after the wall has been built, the exterior cladding or exterior sheathing is on, and insulation is in the wall, and then you put the poly on. And because poly doesn't have any strength on its own, if we were to do a depressurization test, if Stefan was to come and do a depressurization test, he could actually pull the poly off the wall.
This has been great, Gary, and I want to thank you for being here because we're trying to do what we will now call these fireside chat videos, just to inform, to educate, to inspire, to motivate, and mostly to challenge consumers to ask for it and builders to build it. So thank you very much for being here, Gary.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks.